Okay, I think we're on. Are we on? I think we're on. What's up, everybody? Yo, yo, yo. I'm in the studio. It's Art School Tuesdays. I got a cat on my head. Check it out. Check it out. Super excited. I do have the chat. I can see the chat on Discord. So if you guys have questions or something while I'm talking, go ahead, shoot them up there. I'll try to hit them as I can. But we're looking at digital art today. Pretty excited. I did a presentation around Ascii Art when I was working at Dapper Labs for the Axiom design crew. And I went through that old pitch deck and was looking at that when I was building out this presentation, because this was like some of the first art that I saw when I was like first got my computer back in 2000, 2003, 2004, when I was like, oh, whoa, like this is crazy. I was finding like all this crazy stuff on bulletin boards and all that, like, you know, pixel art, bulletin board art. This is back in, you know, AOL. AOL was dial up, ding, 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 slowly downloaded and everything. So yeah, we're going to jump in. All right, you guys ready for this? Boom. We're going to be looking at pixel art to start out. And I have a presentation to kind of talk about, you know, intro into digital art. Like, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Cool. So intro into digital art. I'm Franky Nines. You guys check me out on the internet. Check me out on Twitter. So first, where did digital art start? Where did it all start? Started with the computer. Duh. We all knew that. But before we were able to do all the crazy 3D graphics and all the PNGs and all the videos and video effect stuff, some of the most earliest digital art was Ascii Art. You know, your classic keystroke ASCIIs. And what was crazy about this was developers that were writing code, whether it was on the back end on or like in a terminal or for an application or whatever, some developers that were creative would just throw, you know, weird like little illustrations done in these keyboard montages that were. It was like a first form of digital art. No, you couldn't save it or you couldn't print it. I mean, you could print it, but you couldn't do what you could do with it today. It was still a form of art in a sense, even though it was just keyboard strokes. In 1981, IBM, they dropped their monochrome display adapter, which was a big deal in 1981. I wasn't even around yet, but that was a big deal. What that meant was computer screens could now display RGB. And when they linked up with MS-DOS, they also increased the amount of characters that they could have and display on the screen. So, you know, previous to the MS-DOS that came out, like there was a very limited character set. I think it was only like 128 characters computers could actually spit out. So, you know, you get the IBM the RGB graphics card that can show color. It's not just one color, it can show multiple colors. And then you get this new set of characters from MS-DOS, and then boom, you get an array of 16 colors. You get an entire set of hues and colors. And what they were doing is they were using, if you see these strokes on the right, on the top, some of these like dithered strokes, they were combining these and layering them on top of each other to create hue and value, like to create tonal colors. So out of these 16 colors, these swatches on the right, they could build out an entire rainbow, an entire, you know, set of all kinds of colors. And if anybody's used any design software that we have today, you can see that image on the left, but it's just like, in our modern time, it's a lot smoother, but this is what it looked like back then. And in the same way that they were generating that Ascii art, they were making Ascii art. So Ascii art was basically those those keystrokes and those colors. And where this art lived was on loading screens, primarily in applications, and games. I think in the earliest internet bulletin boards and when people used to dial into server like manually before we had like a concept of internet, right? Like you would dial into one of these, and when you were connected, it would download one of these files, or it would download all of this information and display you a login screen. If you guys are familiar with the Hackers movie, like very very, very kind of that aesthetic, right? Like that vibe. That was a little bit more in the 90s. We're talking, this is probably like what, 89 or something. So yeah, and then also for games, some of the earliest games, I mean, when you look at Atari, they were rendering vectors and they were animating vectors, which we'll talk about in a second. But even looking at Mario, like the first on the Nintendo, pixel art, they weren't drawing squares. They were rendering squares from text files. And that's what they were using to create their visual graphics, were all from these bits of files that had color information and pixel information. So Ascii Art was one of the first digital art pieces one of the first digital art, I guess, I don't know, genres that I discovered when I was getting into making art and being on the internet and being a crazy kooky internet guy. Ascii Art, kind of like that really, really attracted me. I thought it was so cool when I first saw it. It was like the original pixel art. And it was when I was in San Francisco, I was like cruising around and we rolled past this gallery. It's called 16 Colors. And they were throwing a show from these Ascii artists they're still pretty active today. I think they're all OGs now, but they would make the craziest stuff. And I remember seeing these on bulletin board websites back in the day when I was like in school, and just being like, whoa, like these guys they're what? Like, this is crazy. Like, how are they doing this? And what's nuts is they weren't using tablets or mice to draw these. A lot of these were done like in the keyboard typing. That's the other thing you have to remember. Is like, go back, like we didn't have touch screens and all that. Like they'd be able to do this stuff with very limited color sets with just a handful of keyboard strokes, and boom, go to town. So the GIF was around, I think I put a note here in 1987, I think is when the GIF file format was kind of established. So in 1981, we had the IBM graphics card, and we had MS-DOS. They opened up the 256 like keys. And then the GIF file format was a way to compress all of that so that you could spit out an image, which looks very similar to all of that art that I was just showing you. It's basically pixels, right? But what you could do with the GIF, which was really, really, really interesting, was it could render multiple lines of that text and multiple lines on different states. And that's where you get your animated GIF. That file, if you ever look at a GIF and you see all those pixels in it, if you break it down, it's basically that's what it is. It's a giant text file that is all those keystrokes and the colors of those keystrokes in different states so that they can animate. And that's where you kind of get all of that moshing effect. It's really cool. I did an art piece, or I did an art show back in 2014. And I made a bunch of images and I shrinked them down in Photoshop, and then I blew them up. I saved them as GIFs, and then I blew them up and kept all the pixel information so that I could get that very pixelated, grungy, dithered look, like that noise or that pattern compression look. And that was because when you shrink all that information down and you blow it back up, it's trying to make up for all that lost data. So now we have the JPEG. So JPEG was, I put another note here. JPEG was standardized in 1992. So this was another image format that they were playing around with for rendering photographs. Obviously, video cameras were around. People were doing their America's Funniest Home Video records. Like, you remember that, like VHS video. Like that was all around. But JPEG was a way that the internet could transfer and display, and even just computers in general, display very rich images, stuff that wasn't on the more pixelated bound. And what the GIF or the JPEG did as well was it opened up the range of blending for colors. I don't know if you guys can see this is clear, but if you look at the image on the left versus the image on the right, the image on the right is it's guessing where some colors might be. It's changing the quality, if you will. If you notice your file types when you're saving a file, when you have like if you're in the JPEG realm, but like a lower quality JPEG versus a higher quality JPEG will be in a larger file size. And that's because it's using more colors or it's using less colors to render. And what the JPEG does is it will guess in between and kind of put some pixels of the same color to try to blend it and trick your eye into making it feel like you're looking at a high quality image. And that's how JPEG rendering works. So that's raster graphics, right? So we talked about the code graphics and we talked about raster graphics. And we're go back to code graphics, vector, SVG. Everybody, if you guys have worked in web, if you've done digital illustration, you've all heard about the vector. You all know that it's like, okay, if you want high quality prints, go vector. Like, what does that all mean? Like, we kind of know. So vectors, they've been around forever. They're actually in analog computing were like, ooh, yeah, it's been around forever. I mean, I think it was first used by the U.S. Sage Air Defense, right? Which makes sense, military, for sure. Like they're rendering and trying to figure out where stuff is. Also, like this graphic on the left, it looks very much like a old school Atari game. So like definitely like vectors, I mean, they've been around, like definitely been around. But what a vector is basically, it's those points. It's those points, and then the computer determines a line in between certain points, and those points could live on a X axis, Y axis, a Z axis, and then there's everything in between. Some of the first illustration software that was vector illustration software. I love these screenshots. This throws me back into like late 2000s, mid 2000s. Like this is it. If you've ever done digital illustrator, if you did digital illustration back then, you'd be looking at this kind of stuff and being like, ooh, I can do that. But these are all vector lines in vector illustration to fill in the gaps and to make illustration work, basically. Corel Draw, if you guys remember that one, that was a that was an amazing app. No, it was terrible. Illustrator, I always thought Illustrator was great. I loved it. But aside from like those icons and different graphics that you'd have on the internet when you're browsing websites, vectors are really, really great for print because you can scale them infinitely and you don't lose any of those pixels. So back to that JPEG, when you shrink it down, you remove all those pixels, and when you blow it back up, it doesn't have those anymore. So it's like, where'd they all go? In vector, you don't have that because you're only focused on those points and connecting those dots. And yeah, with print material, I mean, this is, I worked in a print shop. Before I went to college, I worked in a print shop in Alaska randomly. And I remember going through doing some print work, and I would go through files that looked like this, or just, it had that look, just had that vector old school look. And then there would be tons of layers and curves and all kinds of stuff. Now this is all 2D vector. This is all on a flat surface, X and Y. But when you started to get into 3D, very, very much so like the software or the military software that we're looking at from the 50s and 60s, like that very early stuff where they could look at points that were inside and on the outside and all around. You start to get into this 3D shapes. And like the 2D illustration where you're connecting lines and you're putting a face on the outside, you start to build out polygons. And that's basically the fundamentals of 3D, right? 3D modeling, 3D modeling, 3D graphics rendering. And that's a big chunk of what we see in today's visual everything around movies, art, like you guys all know Beeple's work, like that's like a combination of 3D rendered graphics and like some post editing. Like this is now like technology that is now being moved into the art space, in the movie space, and all around us space, printing space, everywhere. I like looking at these old school or not old school, but like a 3D model broken down to its simplest shape before you start to throw in all those curves. I think it's so cool. It's like I tried to build a paper skull, and I wanted the paper skull to look like the model on the farthest left. I was like, that would be so cool. And it was so hard. I got like halfway done and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. This sucks. But it was cool because you could do it. You just do it with some cardstock. I took a 3D modeling class in college, and I remember the instructor was like, you have to do everything in triangles. And so every time I look at a 3D model now, I try to think of like, okay, what are the triangle, like what would the triangle points be for all of this? And then once you have your 3D model out, you know, soften it. But yeah, so 3D work, like material rendering or 3D rendering in general. If you guys have ever used Cinema 4D, it's probably, I love Cinema 4D. For a while there, a couple years ago, I was going crazy in Cinema 4D. I was making all kinds of stuff. I actually had a billboard in downtown Los Angeles that displayed a 3D rendering of mine. And if most of you guys probably did not even know that I do 3D or had 3D work under my belt. Yeah, Blender is, I never jumped into Blender. That's a good point. So one thing I wanted to talk to you too, which I didn't put in any of these slides, is like, how do you get into, or how do you get access to these kind of softwares and price points? One of the reasons why I don't do Cinema 4D anymore is because they changed the way that you obtain the software. They have like the subscription system now. And before, when I was doing it on like a little laptop, I had some version that was like really, really old, and I just turned it on and it would work. And so I'm not going to get into the details about that, but it would just work. And so now it's a little bit complicated for me to get my work system back up. So I'm like, I don't quite know what's happening. It's been a while, but Blender is free. And I know a lot of artists that use Blender that they kick ass at it. They're really, really good at it. Actually, yeah, I have a buddy who just jumped into the crypto art scene that I was talking with DC about. I was like, yo, he's getting into it. He does stuff in Blender. It's like, what? Crazy. And it's totally free. I could never figure it out because of the keystrokes are all different, but yeah, there's ways to get in there. But 3D stuff, like, I mean, aside from just being able to render and spit out a flat image, like, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. Animation specifically. Now, as we start to even get better with our camera systems, and we have AR, like where it's basically scanning the distance of something. I don't know if they're using infrared for AR. I'm not quite sure. But you know, it can tell the depth of something and rebuild that as a 3D model. Like, that's crazy, right? Cameras can do that now. Like, it's nuts. So where will this technology go? Like, how far does it shoot forward? But really, what kind of defines and blends the lines of what art is, right? Like, I think probably the coolest thing about all of this is thinking about back to those Ascii and those Ascii displays of those loading screens. They weren't really making art, they were making title screens, right? But it's kind of like art, but it's not art, but it is art. It's like we're in this like interesting, like, what is art, right? Like, there's all this philosophical discussion that can be handed around it. And what's really, really cool about the NFT space is like it now has a market for digital art. And so it's now something where people have been selling paintings for hundreds of years, and artists have been commissioned for thousands of years to make art. Like, now we have an art marketplace where digital art can live. And digital art being, I mean, we just went through maybe 30 years of technical history, like digital art, and we're now getting to that point in the last 3 years. Really cool, really crazy. Through Michaela in there, digital influencers. Whoa, Like, what? That's crazy. There we go. That was it. Digital art. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little demo, because what's a cool art school without a demo? We're going to jump into Photoshop. I love Photoshop. I've been in Photoshop for a minute. It's my number one. Actually, no, maybe Illustrator. Actually, no, my first was Flash. I loved Flash. You guys ever remember Adobe Flash? But we're gonna make some pixel art. Really, really easy, simple stuff. So jumping in, as I mentioned, pixel art is tiny. So when you're getting into pixel art, if you're making a canvas, you don't need much room. You really only need 16 to 32 pixels. That's about it. You don't need much. And if you want to blow it up, I'll show you, but like, you don't need that much room. I've seen pixel artists, like really, really great pixel artists that work on very, very small canvases, and they just go to town on it. And I've seen people try to imitate pixel art by using a large canvas and drawing squares. That's kind of what you don't want to do. If you're getting into pixel art, start small, because you don't need much. Like, look at that little tiny square. What? We're gonna make art in that? Yeah, we're going back to the basics. So zoom in all the way. Let's see if I can turn on my grid. I don't know where it went. Let's see. I think it's, I don't know. You might be able to see it in here. I'm gonna fill this in black. Okay, that displays it. You can see a very light texture. I don't know. Can you guys see that very light grid in there? Maybe I'll make it like light gray. Oh, that didn't work either. Or dark gray. Dark gray displays a little bit better, but it's a very small grid. So that 16 by 16 pixels that we're looking at is actually 16 of these little tiny squares, which are a 1 pixel point. Now, how did I get my brush all the way down to fit that? It's just taking your brush and moving it all down to 1 pixel. Once you get into the 1 pixel range on like a hard brush, or even I think they used to have, I thought there was pixel brushes in here. I'm like, yo, Photoshop's my number one. I don't know where the brushes are. There we go. That was a different kind of brush. But if you hold down on the brush tool here, where you have your standard brush where you might do digital painting or photo touch-ups, if you hold down, you can access the pencil. And then, yeah, changing that pixel size will change your brush size. And going all the way back down to 1 is basically all you need. And you can start building out pixel art. Now, if you really wanted to go and do it the old school way, you limit your palette as well to 16 colors. But it's 2021. Why would anyone want to do that? We got all these colors. Look at that. We go to town. Like, we don't need to limit it all the way. So yeah, I saw someone yelled out a CryptoPunk. So let's draw a CryptoPunk. Pulling up a reference. Sweet. I don't know how big the canvas is for CryptoPunks. It looks like it might be a 32 by 32. Which, if you wanted to change the size of this, obviously you could just go image canvas size, and you could change this up, boost it up to 32 by 32. Might be too much. Kind of when you start to work at 24 by 24, awesome. That's a good size. Cool. So let's see. Cool. So now that I have this set up, I can start drawing my stuff. Pixel Punk or CryptoPunks. Let's see where we would start with this. Let's see if I can get this to zoom in just to fit right. Boom. Okay. So without looking at a grid to guess, I would say they have a line going up this side is about where the head is on some of them. If I go back to my eraser, is there an eraser pencil? I thought there was. I have all these general brushes. I guess you just have to, you can lightly erase stuff in the pixel world. You can't just erase it with the pencil. All right, so we're gonna define our little shape of our head. Looks like they have a neck. Make it a little wider. And then they have the bottom of their chin. It's about that high. And rounded corner for the bottom of the actual chin. I guess that was the top of the neck. It was very cool, like pixel art when drawing stuff that has a curve, when you're very limited to just these squares and you can't really do like a swooping shape. It was always dope, I thought, in looking at old video games, how they would use basically just going up the diagonal line to create curves. I always thought that was like super, super rad. Looking at the CryptoPunk art, like they do it pretty well with the limited canvas size. I saw one on Twitter that was these little dancing TVs, these little pixelated TVs. I think Alan posted it. It was so cool. It's like, what? Those are awesome. They're animated. So we're gonna draw an ear. If the actual illustrator from CryptoPunks is watching this and is like, yo, you're jacking that up, I'm sorry. I don't know where all this stuff goes. I'd have to throw a grid on top of the illustrations to know. But I can guess. There we go. Got a cool ear. And then it looks like they have their mouth is kind of near, maybe about right there. It's about the size of the neck. And then eyes, if I had to guess by the ear, maybe right here. It's all math. It's a grid. Probably right here. Cool. Starting to look like a CryptoPunk. Boom. CryptoPunk in. Actually, some of the CryptoPunks, I'm looking at them right now on my screen. There's some big ones. Like there's the hair. When you start getting those like the big hair and the big heads, like the artwork is actually is quite dope. I thought at first they were all like procedurally generated. I don't know how many of these are procedurally generated versus how many are. I guess I should look it up, or I should already know about it. But we're just gonna keep drawing. Let's I don't know. Let's see what we're gonna do. Give this dude a hat. Definitely give him a hat. We give him like one of those SF fixie biker rider hats. Yep. This looks like an old school bicycle cap, Supreme cap, and then again going down the horizontal line for your curve. Easy, fun, super fun. So let's see what else would we do with our CryptoPunk. I see a lot of them with shades. Give them some shades, dude. Why not? I already did do these little eyes. Give them some lokes. There we go. Yeah. Pull up in that skirt. We'll black them out too. Throw some white lines on them. Dope. And then, oh, snaps. I forgot his nose. Bam. Check it out. We'll color this dude in. Give him a, let's see, maybe. Actually, I'll fix his hat. I'll color his hat in here and then color the bill in a little bit lighter. And do it like this. Yeah, there we go. Sweet. And then give him some skin color. Let's see, I'll probably make him green. Well, his hat's green. Make him yellow. It's like a Simpsons CryptoPunk. Check it out. There's a couple of really, really amazing artists I used to follow on Tumblr that do insane pixel art. I think is it the Two Swords brothers who did, or was it the Two Swords? Was the game? It was all done in pixel art. It was like an iPhone game. Those guys, like, they killed it. Like, their character design was so sick. There's been a couple artists now that I've seen in my career that have just like nailed it for this style, and even blown it up like larger than this to way larger canvases and doing either really simplified design where you have your character is very, very limited on its like, using like very simple shapes to convey something versus having like very, very a lot of going on the image to bring it up. I was doing like a cast shadow under this guy's hat. I don't know why. I kind of like split him in half. Looks all right. And then let's throw some shine on those glasses. Yeah. Boom. See, if I was a CryptoPunk, I'd look like this. Then we got to give him a cool logo on his hat. Again, simplified. It's a logo on my hat. Boom. I'm ready to hit the streets, CryptoPunk style. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So as I mentioned, character design, like the Two Swords guys, like they do their characters very, very simple. Like they will draw up the body. Like, what would a CryptoPunk look like on this grid at that same shape? Right? Like, they draw their characters very, very limited. They just start to build with very, very low amount of pixels to just build up a basic silhouette. I don't know if I talked about this in my character design workshop, but when I was working at Zynga, I worked with a bunch of Pixar artists, and they would show me all these crazy tricks about how to do character art and all this stuff. And they were so good. And they had these silhouetting exercises where they would just go and pull out a giant 11x17 and just draw a bunch of silhouettes on it and use that as the foundation for defining what their characters would look like in a game's ecosystem. And it was so cool because they would just scribble them. And they'd be like, okay, here's a dude standing next to, I don't know, a robot, right? Or here's that could be another character. Yeah, it's a dude standing next to two robots. So let's see. Now that I have my silhouettes done, let's color them in. I think this kind of looks like a robot. They could all be robots, actually. This kind of looks like a robot, too. Maybe he's like standing on a wheel. Like a little arm over here. And like a little plate where he serves dinner. It's like a butler robot. It definitely has like a red blinking light on its ear. This one probably has like some little notification lights up here. Like, sure. But he definitely has legs, I will say. Like this one, this robot definitely walks. He's got like pirate pegs. Oops. Almost looks like he's wearing shorts. This robot's wearing some short shorts. And then maybe there's my CryptoPunk character that I made. He's like, it's got the Simpsons color skin. I need to draw his hat. Maybe his arms like stick out. Or maybe he's got like, looks like he's holding a cup. Very, very, very simple. See? And when you start to zoom out and look at him, it gets even cooler because you can start to imagine that these things could be walking around very chilly, right? Like in a game. That gray with that dotted line almost looks like they're standing on a street. But what's cool about that is even back to the CryptoPunks, like when you zoom out, like the fidelity starts to get tighter and tighter the smaller you look at it. It's almost like how that GIF in those JPEGs looked when they were rendered. Kind of cool. So I forgot my little dude. Hook him up. He's wearing his hat backwards now. He definitely has a pink shirt on. Oops. Here we go. And let's see. Boom. Erase this out. Give him a neck. And he had glasses. Easy. Very simple. Boom. The coins in Mario I always thought were super, super rad how they're illustrated. They're like little discs. Very simple shape like that. In the original Mario. And they had actually they were wider than this because they had a line up the middle. But always loved like that very simple shape. Build up. So let's get back to our robots. Let's see. This one's got some blue. It's definitely holding some, I don't know. Holding some salad. And then this robot, it's funny, this could be like a curved arm. You might have like another arm right here. Actually, we're gonna give him eyes. Kind of looks like a crab. And a cool smile. And we'll make his shirt purple. Boom, easy. So silhouetting, very simple shapes, making pixel art. Super, 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 super simple. We can draw a couple more of these. Aside from silhouetting, one of the techniques that I would try to use when doing character design with this, if you're not just building these up from your imagination, like where you already know where you're gonna start to draw, switch this to black, where you're like, start to like define shapes and look at making like a character, is, obviously your silhouetting techniques are always like fun to start with. Or if you're doing something like on the CryptoPunk side where you're starting to make like an actual character and you want to design a specific character that you're going to reuse multiple times to set like an aesthetic, then you can carefully draw it out and plan it out. Say if I was drawing like a little egg head guy, widen up his head. Let's see if we'll make it 3D. It's like a disc. Sweet. Move this over. So having these pixels, just drawing it in, filling it in, you can start to build whatever you want. Sometimes I just draw little things like this and just make it up or as I go. Or if I'm trying to plan out something that I want to be very specific, I'll have a little bit more of a game plan. This is interesting. I'm getting some, I have 90% opacity on. You don't want that. You want 100% opacity at all times when you're doing this. It's like, what is going on with my colors? So yeah, so if anybody's out there like aspiring artists or just artists taking a break from doing, what you're comfortable with, try to jump into a different medium, try to jump into a different style, try to see if you can press in a different technique, your style of art, and challenge yourself. Open up a very simple 24 by 24 pixel grid and see if you can create something really compelling in that limited space, right? As an artist, you should always be challenging yourself, always trying to push yourself to explore new ways to create. Don't get siloed into one aesthetic. Don't get siloed into one tool. Don't get siloed into one technique. Try to push yourself to explore and go beyond that. And sometimes the simplest form is the most fun. Sometimes when I get in art blocks, I'll bust open a box of crayons and some paper and just start drawing. It's breaking out of your comfort zone and helping you explore. It's all about that exploration and going. So I'm gonna turn this into a fish. I don't know why, but it just seems right. Fish with some big lips. It's kind of like a bird fish. And then definitely give them some eyeballs. It's kind of like a bird fish. And I gave him some pink hair just because. Oh, it's an Ascii. Oh yeah, what are Asciis? Are they bird fishes? If they're bird fishes, then that just changed my entire outlook on everything, because bird fishes, I'm down for that. I'm gonna outline his hair. Sweet. Parrotfish. It is kind of like a parrotfish. Let's see. Go purple. Gotta give him the other fin. Looks like he's like pointing down. Yeah, if someone ever did a CryptoPunks Ascii mashup, there you go. There's your starting base. Like, actually, that'd be pretty impressive, because Ascii is like they have that procedurally generated millions of variations type of thing going on as well. Cryptokitties too. Ooh, drawing a pixel Cryptokitty could be pretty fun. Let's do that. We'll do that. We'll close this up, because I'm down for that. Okay, let's see. Pull up one for reference. Should be the classic orange Cryptokitty. Okay, back to our pencil. So if I was drawing a Cryptokitty in pixels, start them out like this. The base of the little tummy, probably move it up. I just do three squares, and then I'd probably drag this along. In pixel art, if you're making stuff symmetrical, it's always smart to be cautious or be aware of how many lines or how many of your grid squares you have on each side. So if you notice, like here I have 3, here I have 3. So I'm making this very symmetrical. Probably not the best for CryptoKitty because they do have a tail on one side. So I might want to move this and shorten it a little bit to give him room for his tail. But if I drew his body going up, probably like do 2 going here, maybe actually probably take it up 4 grid, and then I'd cut it and do 3. Then I might cut it and do 3, and cut it and do 3, and cut it and do across the top, just to make a little egg shape, that like CryptoKitty classic, the first version egg shape. And then they have their little feet, so you can keep it very simple at the bottom, and then you could do 2 here for those little feet that stick out. And then they have their ears, so I'd probably just pull their ears up from that first break, pull it down. It looks about right. It's a pixel. It's a pixel CryptoKitty. And then his feet go all the way up. Probably just do a little shape like that, just to give him those little nubs, those little tiny nubs that they have. The mouth, I don't know how you would do a CryptoKitty mouth on a little pixel CryptoKitty. Probably be something like they have their nose, and then they have like their little cheeks, and then their eyes. The eyes are big, so you would want to have big blocky eyes on the little dude. Let's see, I could just do them like, but the eyes are, they're a lot lower. They're about right there. Just connect them to the mouth, and then put in a little pupil. Make it blue, so that way it doesn't blend into the mouth shape. And then get ready to draw that tail. CryptoKitty. Looks like just like one. It's a very small version. Let's color all this in. Actually, we'll make his nose pink, just so it changes it up, so it doesn't look so tight. Erase some of his cheek there. Actually, I might redraw this mouth altogether. I lost my lines. We're gonna change what's behind by making it darker on the pixel side. So like the tail, so that way I can keep track of where these other shapes are, like the back of his legs or even his tail. And like the belly, the CryptoKitty, because they do have their little bellies. And then the smile. I don't know. Maybe I'll make his nose bigger. Maybe that will help it. It went from a CryptoKitty to like a crypto beaver real fast. There we go. There we go. It's starting to look like a little kitty cat. I think the ears they need to be probably like that. Not as round. Starting to get into, yeah, that looks better. Check it out. It's Cryptokitty. Except for Cryptokitties, they have all those crazy shapes and colors on them. So you have to jazz them up a little bit. Just give them some like random spots. His little cattributes. Looks like he got covered in jelly. He was eating a peanut butter sandwich. Just like jelly all over the place. But pretty simple. Pretty fun. So you can see doing pixel art, really cool. So now this is all small images. Now, what if I wanted to take this to the next level and blow it up? How would I do that and keep my pixel information without it turning into a giant mess? So in your image, if you wanted to blow this up to either spit it out in like a game or to do something, I don't know, print it even, you could. Almost at the same level that you can vectorize graphics, because it is so simple that based off of these pixels, there's not much in between. So if you wanted to keep that sharpness of those pixels, you totally could. So you could blow up a CryptoPunk quite large and print it on a billboard or whatever and keep all of that pixel information, because the colors in between are very simple, very hard edge, and that's going to be easier to take up. So when you're increasing your image size, it's not displaying. I chose to increase my image size on my resampling. My resampling is going to change. It's going to change it. I can increase the size. Let's see what happens if I take it up to 1024 by 1024 and keep it at nearest neighbor. It's going to keep all of that pixel information, or it's going to keep all of that hard edge information and make this larger. So now you can see if I zoom in, I'm not getting all of that resampling, where it's not trying to guess in between and blend orange to purple. It's making it up by keeping that hard edge. And that's by, on the image size, choosing it to scale it nearest neighbor. Now, if you scaled it up at a bilinear, it's going to do what the Jpeg does. It's going to try to guess all that information in between, and it's going to turn it into a giant mess. But if you look at all of the stuff that I drew, they're all very sharp, and they're all big. This is 1024 by 1024. This is ready to go. Even my little robot crew here, like this is all tight. And then as you zoom in, you can see that there's actually tons of pixels in between. I took it from 24 by 24 all the way up. So now it's made up for all that information. And then looking at my CryptoPunk that I made, same thing, right? He's ready to go, ready to be printed, ready to go and do whatever it wants. Now, if I went back down, go back down to that small shape, just to experiment. If I did a gradient, I wonder what that would look like. So I'm gonna grab the bucket, grab the gradient tool, and choose a cool, let's choose see if we can get like a spectrum. Oh, I guess not. Iridescent, whoa, look at that. Adobe, they're getting hip. Wow, that's cool. That's actually really cool. So doing a gradient, you can see how it's choosing to make up those colors, but it's very simplified. Now, if I blow this up, like how I blew up that entire canvas, it's going to keep all that info at nearest neighbor when I'm increasing the image size. It's keeping all that info. Oh no, actually what it's doing, that's interesting. Unless my eyes are playing a trick on me, or that might just come from the gradient, but it looks like it's taking a lighter color and moving it. It's very dim. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see at the break of each color, it actually starts out lighter. This could be an illusion. I don't know. I'd have to go in and pick it. Might actually be like a straight up illusion. Oh no, it's all the same color. Oh yeah, it's just playing with my eyes. I'm going colorblind. Okay, so that's actually pretty rad. But if I took this down and I blew all of this image up at bilinear or by cubic or preserve detail or even bilinear, it's going to guess all that information in between, and it's going to give me a blend. Now it's made up for all of those lost pixels, and now there it goes. But what did it do to my Cryptokitty? Oh no, it looks like garbage. What did it do to my CryptoPunk? Same thing. So when you're working on these smaller graphics like this and you want to blow them up and put them into production, definitely stay cautious about what technique you're using to resample your image to increase its size. It's going to be really, really, really important. And again, if you were doing something where you were trying to get more pixel information out of a simple blended image, then you'd want to use some kind of system where it's going to guess all of those colors in between. But in the case where you're doing pixel art, keep it at a hard edge, and then you'll be able to save all that pixel information. So yeah, that just about does it. That was intro to digital arts. Talked about some cool stuff. Talked about the history of digital art, kind of where it all started out, where it all went. And then we talked about vectorizing and vector graphics in 3D to basically making some very, very simple pixel art. So I think that was pretty rad. I hope that you guys make some pixel little canvas paintings of anything, post it and show it. Post it on Twitter, post it in the whale chat. I would love to see some little pixel 8-bit, 16-bit creations. I think that'd be so rad. So yeah, that was for our week one. Next week we're going to be looking at, let's see, let me pull it up quickly. Next week we're going to be looking at creating digital work. So we're going to look at different mobile apps and desktop apps and what you can do if you have a computer machine or if you're just using purely a tablet, how to diversify your tools. Because as an artist, you should be basically a Swiss knife and be able to paint, be able to do all kinds of different things. So we're going to look at the different digital art tools and talk about resources and stock images. And then next week demo, we're going to be making some London style grunge street art. I'm going to be doing a piece that's very like that kind of like raw Banksy, like collage aesthetic. And we're going to go into Photoshop a little bit deeper in how to make those stencil effects and using some brushes and all that. We'll have a longer demo next week, but definitely check in on next week's art school. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoy.